G'day everyone, Friday again, time for another Tech Talk. This week we've had a bit of inquiry over the last week or so from a couple of different people regarding lighter machinery, lighter grinders, so single phase style grinders. So when we get to a particular point like that keeps coming up over the last couple of weeks, it's always good to bring to Tech Talk. What are some thoughts around these lighter machines, the good, the bad, the ugly? What do we think, guys? And nice to have you along also, Tim and Hayden and Josh. Yes.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it. Love being here. Single phase machines. Look, I'm going to do everything not to break the chair that I'm sitting on to talk about this subject. I'm actually going to throw it over to Hayden because I want to get, before we begin the single phase talk, I want to get St. Hayden's perspective on maintaining small machines, the cost of, I guess, the frequency of servicing and that sort of stuff. I want to start there.
Starting in a good spot. Yeah, look, the single phase machines, there's a fair range out there of different sizes and styles and manufacturers. I guess, we always start talking back to the PG grinders, your 530s, which have been around for a long time for a good reason. They come out in single phase and three phase in those ones. So look, as a good machine starting point is your 530. They're designed well, robust, slightly larger machine, which is probably why a lot of people move to the smaller 450s and things like that for access. But from a maintenance perspective, some of those smaller ones, they just don't last as long. They're not designed to do your 600 hours before rebuilds and things like that. So there is a big difference in the different manufacturers, different machines as to how long they're going to last out there. So, an example like your PG 450s. Generally on those belts, if you get 250 hours out of a belt on that, you've done really well. So then, that falls into, well, is it my main machine? Am I using it every day? Is that my main earning tool? If it is, well, every 200 hours, it's coming in to get something done. So what does that look like, cost-wise for you? Versus something like a 530 where, a lot of guys, I think we just had one in recently that was about 1,000 hours out of a single phase 530 before it needed work done. So that's a big difference in there. And yes, there's different costs in the rebuilds of them. Obviously a 530 is a bit more labour and things in it to rebuild and some more parts compared to a 450, but you're getting 5 times the length out of it as a general. So look, lighter machines generally need more repairs as a rule of thumb. But again, you've got the new generation stuff coming out, which hasn't really been out probably quite long enough to get a good feel for the servicing on them. Things like the new 540s and that. So a few of those out there. But looking at other similar designs, that there are things in their belts and things that do tend to wear pretty quickly. So we're sort of expecting to see that similar regime come through in the newer small machines as well.
So my understanding then, Hayden, from listening to you, is that the smaller machines, I'm assuming it's still a high amount of vibration environment. It's still pretty harsh as far as dust is concerned, and we've got smaller bearings to burden the load. Therefore, everything wears out a bit faster and less surface area or less belt to harness the load as well. So a bit more stress on everything. Is that right?
That's correct. And even to the point of some of the smaller machines, they don't have a belt tensioner. The belt gets stretched on, and once it heats up, it expands a bit and stretches, it loses its grip. So there's certain machines out there that are set and forget throwaway style machines, which really takes it away from the bigger players that they're all rebuildable because, the machine's designed to get, 10 years out of it kind of style with maintenance and rebuilds. So the little ones just aren't quite designed for that. So that's going to hurt if you try and use that as your main machine.
Talking productivity, big three-phase machines versus smaller single-phase machines. I'm going to talk about three-phase machines in the same frame size versus single-phase machines.
Oh, look, the word that comes to mind when we're talking about single-phase machines is threshold. So we've always got an upper limit with single-phase, and for people that don't understand much about power, that's the big difference that we're talking about here. Is there's only so much limit. You're completely limited with single-phase power, both from a voltage point of view and current. So everything has to be built below that threshold. As soon as we go to three-phase, even if it's the same frame size machine, if we're comparing a single-phase version of that machine to a three-phase, we can straight away start doing a whole lot more stuff because we've got the power and the supply that we can actually we can build features and performance into a machine, and we can start using components that you just can't fit into a single-phase machine because you just don't have the power to work with. So there's some big differences there. Obviously, with the single-phase power, really the most you can get is about 2.2 kilowatt of power into a machine. And you've got to spread that over the whole machine. You start looking at machines in the same category in 3-phase and they're starting at 4 kilowatts. That is, effectively speaking, without going into the detail, you're going to get more than twice the power out of that motor on 3-phase than the 2.2 kilowatt on single phase, because even the 2.2 kilowatt, you'll rarely get the full maximisation out of. So just on paper, you're talking about 100% difference in what you have to work with from a power point of view, and we should definitely see that translating to productivity and because it gives us so many other options from a tooling point of view and techniques on the floor.
That's what I wanted to mention, which it's a very, very broad statement I'm about to say, but I suppose the conversation I had with a particular customer regarding his single-phase grinder, I guess, was just when we talk about big blocks and having to adjust tooling and what you might use. The same goes, I guess, in the other direction for the smaller, lighter machines as well, just to be a bit smart about what tooling to use and point pressure and things like that. Again, won't go into specifics because we could go all day, but that's definitely a conversation worth having as well.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned paper before, Tim, because Milan's not here right now, but he would normally talk about the invoice and what the capacity that you have to invoice. And one of the reasons that the single phase versus 3-phase topic has come up is because there's some guys who are talking about buying single phase machinery because they just want to get into the market, versus some guys who are wanting to buy a single phase machine because they want to get into tighter access. They've got a full 3-phase professional operation, but they're looking around for a small machine for access into those small areas where their large machines can't get. And so for me, it's always going to be, particularly if you want to get into the market, you're always going to have the challenge that you're getting into the market with a very, very low producing machine. I mean, Tim just gave us a small amount of indication as to what that looks like limitation-wise in the single phase. But the market competition is already much, much higher output. So you're going to be trying to bid at a lower or same rate, being new to the market as the bigger players, and you're going to be significantly hamstrung by your productivity. And that's going to make it really, really difficult to be profitable and then to scale up into the larger machines to professionalize your outfit. So it's always going to come down to how does it stack up numbers wise, because 365 days of the year, you've got bills to pay and they're always going to be fixed. And you're going to have to try and service those bills from that small single machine if that's what you're using to start out. And the same goes for if you're using a smaller machine, just because I need a small machine for access, your costs for running your business are still going to be fixed, and it's going to have to be able to support those numbers as best as possible. So if you're charging per square meter versus per hour, that's going to make a big difference depending on what type of avenue you go down, the single phase or the 3-phase.
It's a little bit, Josh, if we took a transport scenario, if you have a ute and you're comparing with a semi-trailer, okay, and the price is already established for the Melbourne to Sydney run for a cubic metre or whatever it is in the big semi, and you've got only 1 cubic metre you can do on the back of your ute, but your labour is completely committed to that 1 cubic metre compared to the 50 or whatever the semi-trailer guy does. Thankfully, in the transport industry, there's niche marketplace where there's premium pricing for that ute to actually do its job, but there's not that same equivalent in this industry. You're competing against the semi-trailers all the time.
Well, that's actually highlights a really good point, Tim, because if you are going to go into that small market, the ute market, if you like, you kind of really need to find the right audience, the right customer that has the need specifically for that purpose. And that's the kind of space I would recommend actually going and finding and starting in, and only starting in, because that's where you're actually going to be able to generate some good income. But trying to compete with the semis is probably not going to end well until you've got the money to get one.
So does that mean if I have a 3-phase grinder and I have a single-phase grinder for certain aspects, does that mean it's like I've got the semi-trailer with the ute in the back of the semi-trailer?
Winnebago with the little Suzuki towing behind, Mike.
Is that doing second cut?
It's a good one, guys. Good topic. As with a lot of topics, we could continue on, but a bit of a tip of the iceberg there. So, as usual, if anyone's got any comments or wants to give us a ring and have a bit more of a chat about this sort of topic, always happy to take the calls. But cheers, guys. Good one.
Thanks very much. I'm going to go. This is a bit long. My beer's getting warm. Have a great weekend, everyone, and thanks for joining us, Tim and Hayden.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys. With Milan's absence, he's overseas at the moment, so he's a big shout out to Milan. He's probably watching this from the States, so there you go. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, Milan. Thanks for the work.
Bye.